What if every glance you receive on the street wasn't just a coincidence, but a message from the invisible? A forgotten signal your soul has been sending without your permission. You were never told that your presence carries a frequency, one that can awaken, disturb, or attract without a single word. Most people dismiss it, but ancient traditions and modern minds know energy never hides for long. This is more than just being noticed. It's a spiritual phenomenon waiting to be decoded. And once you unlock it, your consciousness shifts for good. But only if you're ready. It started subtly, like a breeze brushing past unnoticed. One afternoon, while walking through a crowded street, I felt the weight of eyes on me. Not once, not twice, but again and again. Faces turning, strangers lingering. At first, I dismissed it as coincidence. But the sensation only grew stronger. What if it's not about how you look, but what you emit? What if your energy, without you realizing, begins to echo beyond the physical? There's a theory in parapsychology called the psychic staring effect, explored by Rupert Sheldrake. Some believe it's evidence that consciousness extends beyond the body. Others say it's just biology. But what if it's something far deeper, something spiritual? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What if what others are seeing in you is not your clothes or your walk, but a piece of your unconscious finally waking up? The parts of you you've kept buried now showing through the cracks? In silence, we transmit signals stronger than speech. Energy has no face, but it's always felt. I began to notice this after weeks of meditation. My thoughts were quieter, but my presence louder. Strangers smiled. Some looked confused. A few turned away. That's when I realized something in me had shifted and the world was simply reacting. Neuroscience talks about mirror neurons, how our brains respond to the emotions and states of others. But no scientific model can fully explain why. When someone steps into their truth, the entire street seems to feel it. It's not charisma. It's not attraction. It's resonance. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. But here's the strangest part. Just as I began to accept this newfound attention as spiritual reflection, something else started to happen. The stares became heavier, the energy more intense, as if they weren't just looking at me anymore, but looking through me. And that's when I understood. I wasn't the one who had changed. Not entirely. Something else had awakened with me. Imagine this. You walk into a room, and without a word, every eye shifts towards you. No announcement, no introduction. Just an invisible pull. Have you ever wondered why? Why some people command attention without trying, while others go unnoticed, even when they desperately want to be seen? Most people assume it's beauty, status, confidence. But what if the real reason goes deeper, into the very fabric of consciousness? Psychology speaks of projection. The mind reflects what it cannot accept. Could it be that others aren't seeing you, but the parts of themselves that your presence activates? In that sense, their gaze becomes a mirror, but not for their eyes, for your soul. Spiritual teachings across cultures suggest that our aura, our energetic field, reveals more than words ever could. The HeartMath Institute has shown that the human heart emits a measurable electromagnetic field. It shifts with emotion. It expands with coherence. What if, when you align with your truth, your field becomes a beacon, and their gaze, a response to that frequency? Some attention feels warm, others unsettling. That's the key. They're not reacting to your body. They're reacting to your vibration, to your state of being. Maybe they don't even know why they're staring, but something in you disrupted their autopilot. Something awakened a part of them they weren't ready to meet. There's a sacred teaching in Kabbalah. As above, so below. As within, so without. What if the reason they notice you now is because you've started to notice yourself? Not the mask, not the persona, but the witness behind the eyes. That subtle shift is often invisible to the conscious mind, but the subconscious sees it clearly and cannot look away. And just when you think their gaze is about admiration or curiosity, you realize it's none of that. It's recognition, from a level neither of you can explain. And it's pulling something ancient back into the light. The question is, do you dare to look back? You've probably heard stories of people who, after a deep spiritual awakening, start attracting strange attention on the street, in shops, even from animals. They don't change their clothes, their voice, or their walk. And yet, people notice them, not with judgment, but with something closer to awe or confusion. What exactly are they seeing? In many Eastern traditions, this is known. Kundalini energy, when awakened, doesn't just transform the inner self. It radiates outward, often unconsciously. Practitioners of ancient Tantra describe it as a divine force coiled at the base of the spine, waiting for the right moment to rise. And when it does, you stop blending in, because your very presence begins to broadcast. In Reddit forums like r/Kundalini, dozens of users share experiences of strangers turning to look, babies staring intently, even people backing away in silence. One woman wrote, "I walked into the room and the energy felt electric. No one could stop staring. I wasn't trying. I was just different." It's not about seduction or ego. It's a vibration they can't name but can't ignore. Neuroscience has yet to explain this, but some theories touch the edges. The vagus nerve, when stimulated through breath work and deep meditation, regulates heart rate and presence. This calm intensity alters how others respond. Psychologist Dr. Joe Dispenza has spoken about coherent heart-brain states being felt by those nearby, even if they don't consciously understand why they're affected. But here's the paradox. The more awakened your energy becomes, the less you care about how others see you. That detachment only amplifies your signal. People stare not because you ask for it, but because their own energy senses a frequency they can't decode. And for a moment, you stop being a stranger and become a reflection of something they've long forgotten. And just when you begin to feel at peace with this attention, you sense something else rising with it. A force inside you that no longer belongs to your old self. Something sacred that doesn't just want to be seen. It wants to transform everything it touches. You walk down the street, and once again, someone looks at you. Another glance, then another. You feel watched, maybe even judged. But pause for a second. What if that gaze, that strange magnetism, they're not looking at you? They're reflecting something you're projecting outward, something you're not even aware of yet. In psychology, there's a concept known as projection bias. We often assume others see us the way we see ourselves. If you carry inner shame, you may feel stared at when in truth, no one is watching. If you carry light, you might feel exposed because your subconscious is finally surfacing. What if every pair of eyes you feel on you is your own fear looking back? Here's where things get interesting. In a 2008 study published in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience, researchers found that people tend to over-attribute others' attention based on their emotional state. Meaning, your mind believes you're being seen when something deep inside you is awakening. It's not vanity. It's not paranoia. It's an invitation to look within. Imagine you're a projector and the street is your screen. Every unresolved emotion, every hidden belief, every suppressed desire gets played back to you in the reactions of others. That's why some people trigger stares. They're not loud, but their energy is broadcasting a frequency shaped by what's been left unhealed. And energy doesn't lie. So ask yourself, what emotion are you carrying when they look at you? Is it fear, power, guilt, freedom? Your answer holds the key to what you're actually sending into the world. Because you're not just walking through crowds, you're walking through mirrors. And every reflection is begging you to pause and finally see yourself. But just when you think you found the truth, you feel it again. That sharp, familiar gaze from a stranger's eyes. Only this time, it feels like your own soul staring back. You were never meant to blend in. Some people move through the world unseen, by choice or by design. But others, they draw attention like a magnet, even in silence. What if that wasn't random? What if there's an ancient reason why some souls can't go unnoticed, no matter how much they try? Across cultures, stories of chosen ones echo through time. In the Taoist texts, in the Bible, in the Vedas, there are those marked not by titles, but by presence. Prophets, seers, shamans. Their mere existence disrupted the norm. They were seen, because their energy refused to be ignored. And in today's world, that same energy often gets labeled as weird or too much. Spiritual philosopher G.I. Gurdjieff once said, "If you do not choose to awaken, life will choose for you." When a person steps out of unconscious patterns, when they stop playing roles, they become visible to the field. That visibility isn't about fame. It's about resonance. You begin to disturb the slumber of those still asleep, and their reaction is to look. It's a subtle initiation, one you didn't ask for, but perhaps were born into. Wayne Dyer, in one of his lectures, described how people who vibrate from source energy attract attention not for what they do, but for what they remember. This memory is ancient, cellular. It has nothing to do with the ego and everything to do with the soul. But here's the secret most ignore. To be seen in this way is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. Attention is not always admiration. Sometimes it's resistance. Sometimes it's the universe asking, "Are you ready to hold the light, even when no one claps?" Because visibility doesn't always mean acceptance. And just as you begin to feel the weight of what it means to be noticed, you realize something unsettling. You were never just seen by the world. You were sent into it. You're walking alone, lost in thought, and suddenly, there it is. A phrase on a wall. A lyric from a passing car. A random conversation snippet that echoes your exact inner struggle. It's not coincidence. It's not just your imagination. This is synchronicity, what Carl Jung described as meaningful coincidence, where the outer world seems to reflect your inner dialogue. The spiritual path often begins not with rituals or books, but with these small, electric moments. The world begins to whisper, and something in you finally listens. On Reddit spirituality forums, dozens of people shared eerily similar experiences. One user recounted asking the universe for a sign, and within minutes, seeing their question word for word graffitied on a nearby wall. Another heard a song on repeat that matched their silent prayer. No algorithm, no plan, just resonance. The field responds when you're present enough to feel it. Quantum physics offers no direct explanation, but it nudges the door open. The observer effect teaches that intention influences reality. Could your subconscious be aligning reality around you? Just enough to leave hints? In energy terms, this is called coherence, when your thoughts, emotions, and attention synchronize with the fabric of the universe. But here's the part most people miss. These signs aren't always soft or comforting. Sometimes they confront. Sometimes they reveal what you've refused to face. Because synchronicity doesn't just affirm, it awakens. It disturbs your illusion so that your awareness can finally take the lead. And then it happens again. A phrase, a number, a stranger's words, too aligned to ignore. You feel it in your chest before your mind even reacts. Because something or someone has started to speak your language. Not all signs arrive with thunder. Sometimes, the universe whispers through the ordinary. A single rose petal on your path. An open parking space exactly when you're about to give up. To the logical mind, it's just chance. But the soul hears something else. In many spiritual circles, these events are seen as affirmations from the field. Tiny nods from something higher saying, "Keep going." On Reddit, a user shared a moment of deep grief after losing her mother, only to find roses scattered on the floor of a parking lot with no one else around. For her, it wasn't coincidence. It was a message. These everyday miracles are often the most overlooked because they don't scream, they glow. According to studies from the HeartMath Institute, when the heart enters a coherent state, people are more likely to notice patterns and synchronicities. This isn't magic. It's perception tuned to presence. When you're connected, life stops being random. It becomes responsive. But this responsiveness requires something simple and radical. Trust, not blind faith, but the kind of inner stillness that allows symbols to rise from silence. Kabbalistic mystics believe that the divine speaks in layers, numbers, objects, alignments, even delays. What if that red light you missed was the exact redirection you needed? It's easy to ignore these moments. Easy to brush off the unexpected call, the quiet nudge, the stranger's kind words. But what if each was a breadcrumb? What if your path has always been guided, but you stop seeing the clues. And then it happens. You receive another subtle signal just when you need it most. Not dramatic, not loud, but undeniable. Like a secret only you were meant to hear. There's something no one tells you about awakening. As your light grows, so does the contrast around you. You walk into a room and feel the shift instantly. Some people smile without knowing why. Others stiffen, avoid eye contact, or even glare. The same presence that attracts admiration can also awaken discomfort, and not because of anything you did, but because of what you carry. Spiritual energy doesn't ask for permission. It simply radiates. And when your energy becomes coherent, when your intentions, emotions, and actions begin to align, it starts to expose what others are hiding. Like a flashlight in a dark room, you illuminate more than just yourself. You reveal the shadows people would rather leave untouched. And this makes them stare, not in fascination, but in defense. In Taoism, this is described as the imbalance of yin and yang. When too much light enters an unready space, resistance is natural. It's not personal, it's energetic. Philosopher Alan Watts once said, "Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth." When you embody your truth, you break this invisible contract of silence that most people live by. And that disruption is what their eyes respond to. Science, too, offers a glimpse into this phenomenon. Mirror neurons allow people to feel the emotional state of others, even if unconsciously. A grounded, heart-centered person can unintentionally challenge someone in chaos simply by existing. The contrast becomes unbearable, not because of malice, but because their nervous system isn't ready for coherence. You feel their gaze because your energy entered them before your voice ever did. And yet, here's the paradox. The more resistance you meet, the stronger the invitation becomes. Not everyone will love your light, but the ones who do, the ones whose eyes soften when they see you, will recognize something sacred. Not because you said anything profound, but because you reminded them of something they forgot. But as the contrast sharpens and the gazes grow more intense, some drawn to you, others recoiling in silence, you begin to realize something far deeper is at play. Not everyone is reacting to you. Some are reacting to what's waking up inside themselves. And that realization changes everything. Not every look means the same thing. You felt it. Some gazes land like warmth, others like knives. A smile from across the street feels safe, but a lingering, expressionless stare from a stranger can unsettle your entire nervous system. Why is that? Why do some eyes feel like home and others like warning signs? Human behavior experts have long studied microexpressions and body language to decode nonverbal messages. In his work on emotional leakage, psychologist Paul Ekman identified how subtle shifts in the eyes can expose emotion, contempt, awe, sadness, or even desire before the person is aware of it. Your intuition reads these signals instantly, even when your conscious mind can't explain the feeling. What you're sensing isn't fiction, it's feedback. Some stares are loaded with unconscious longing. Others carry judgment, confusion, or even recognition of something unexplainable. In certain spiritual philosophies like Sufism, it's believed that the eyes are not just windows to the soul, they are channels of transmission. A powerful gaze can carry love, healing, or spiritual memory. And sometimes the person looking at you doesn't understand why they feel drawn, they only feel. But here's the twist. The gaze you receive often reveals the part of you they see, or the part of them they've lost. A person stuck in fear may see your freedom as a threat. One buried in shame may see your peace as arrogance. And those who are seeking will see in you a kind of map. You are not just a person to them. You are a message. Start noticing the difference. Is the look fleeting or fixed? Is their body open or guarded? Do they move toward you or freeze in place? You're not just decoding people. You're learning what your energy is reflecting back from the world. The way others look at you is a diagnostic of your frequency and their unconscious response to it. But sometimes, in the middle of all these interpretations, you meet eyes with someone and nothing needs to be said. No fear, no fascination, just knowing. And in that instant you realize, Not all gazes are reactions. Some are reminders of who you were before the world forgot. You don't need words to understand what someone is feeling. Often, it's the silence between you, the space between your presence and theirs, that says everything. When people stare at you in the street without a word, it's not just curiosity, it's communication. But to hear it, you have to shift from thinking to feeling. Your aura is a living language. It speaks through posture, tension, eye movement, and breath. And it reads others the same way. Spiritual teachers like Barbara Brennan have long claimed that subtle shifts in your energetic field can trigger instinctive reactions in others. But here's the part they often leave out. You can learn to interpret those reactions in real time. Start here. Watch their body language before they look at you. Are they already tense? Do their eyes widen when you approach? If someone adjusts their posture, touches their neck, or steps slightly back, they're responding energetically. These are not signs of fear, but of energetic awareness. Techniques from Dr. Joe Navarro's behavioral research suggest that these signals often surface before the conscious mind even registers your presence. There's also a way to test it. Before entering a space, ground yourself. Focus your energy inward. Breathe into your chest. Feel yourself expand. Then, as you move through the environment, observe how others respond without trying to be seen. When your energy is aligned, people don't just see you, they sense you. And sensing bypasses logic. The silence of others can reveal everything. If you stop filling it with your assumptions, ask instead, what does their stillness mean? Are they drawn in or holding back? Sometimes, the quietest reactions carry the loudest truths. Your presence can awaken forgotten memories, trigger suppressed emotions, or offer comfort that words never could. But one day, as you're calmly observing, decoding the room with quiet awareness, you notice someone staring with tears in their eyes. They don't speak. They just look at you like they've finally found something they lost long ago. And that's when you realize, sometimes your presence delivers the message their soul was waiting to receive. There's something unsettling about seeing someone who radiates freedom. Not the kind you post on social media, but the quiet, unshakable kind. The freedom of someone who no longer needs approval, who walks with presence, not performance. That kind of person stirs something ancient in others, and it often shows in the way they stare. The human mind is wired to crave control. Psychologists like Viktor Frankl observed that when people feel powerless, they cling to predictability. But when someone appears who doesn't follow the usual emotional scripts, who doesn't shrink, seek validation, or apologize for existing, they become unreadable. And the brain, desperate for order, fixates. This is why some people look at you and can't look away. You trigger in them a desire they've buried, to be whole, to break the mask, to stop pretending. But with that desire comes fear, because if you can live like that, it means they could too, if they were willing to lose everything they built on false ground. And most aren't ready. Behavioral studies in evolutionary psychology show that we instinctively study those who threaten the tribe's norms, whether out of admiration or suspicion. You walking in your truth silently tells others, you don't have to be who they told you to be. That message either awakens their soul or threatens their ego. Either way, they respond with curiosity, control, or both. But here's the hidden layer. Some will be drawn to you not because of who you are, but because of what they want to possess. People conditioned by scarcity see light and try to own it. Their gaze becomes a grasping, an attempt to cage something that was never meant to be held. And one day, amid all the glances, the admiration, the envy, you'll meet someone who doesn't want to possess you at all. They just want to witness you, fully, without fear, without control. And in that moment, something in you softens, because you realize being truly seen was never about being desired. It was about being understood. Have you ever walked into a room with a clear intention, not to speak, not to perform, but just to be felt? Not out of ego, but awareness. That's where the real experiment begins. When you choose to radiate instead of react, you become more than just visible. You become undeniable. This isn't fantasy. In quantum physics, the observer effect shows that simply observing a particle changes its behavior. Now, imagine this principle applied to consciousness. What if by holding a specific emotional frequency, you're actually shaping how reality and people respond to you? Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that focused intention, when combined with elevated emotion, broadcasts measurable energy that alters outcomes. That includes how others perceive you. I tested this. On an ordinary day, I decided to shift my energy before walking outside. I didn't change my clothes or posture, I just became aware. I breathed into my heart, visualized presence, and moved as if my soul was already recognized. The difference was instant. People stepped aside without tension. Strangers smiled. The air itself felt softer. I wasn't being noticed for me, but for what I was transmitting. Most people move unconsciously, leaking anxiety, doubt, and distraction into their field. But when you deliberately embody alignment, the world mirrors back that coherence. You're not manipulating others. You're awakening their own resonance with your frequency. And often, they won't understand why they looked. They'll just feel like they had to. This is the spiritual science of presence. Not loud, not dramatic, just precise, just true. And it starts with one small shift, deciding who you are before the world reflects it. When you stop looking to be seen, you start being. But something unexpected happens the deeper you commit to this experiment. Not only does the world begin to change around you, but time itself seems to bend. You move through moments differently, and then suddenly, you realize it's not just people reacting to you anymore. It's reality itself. You felt it, that uncanny sensation of someone looking at you. You turn your head, and sure enough, their eyes are already there. Was it instinct, chance, or something science still can't fully explain? The debate has stretched across decades, and it hides a deeper question. What if the act of being seen is more than physical? Biologist Rupert Sheldrake sparked controversy with his research on the sense of being stared at. Across more than 20,000 trials, he suggested that people could detect a gaze without seeing or hearing a thing, often with surprising accuracy. Critics dismissed it as pseudoscience, but the phenomenon persisted, too consistent to ignore. Some even say it's a form of non-local perception, a quantum link between minds. Mainstream psychology tries to reduce this to chance or suggestive bias. Yet, despite attempts to replicate or debunk Sheldrake's work, the feeling remains eerily familiar to millions. In 2004, Sheldrake published The Sense of Being Stared At, compiling thousands of first-hand accounts, real stories from people around the world, from soldiers to children, each describing the same primal experience. Can all of them be wrong? In spiritual terms, it's said that attention is energy. Where the gaze goes, energy flows. Some mystics even claim the eyes are portals, sending and receiving frequency beyond the conscious mind. Could it be that what you feel when someone stares isn't just social awareness, but the collision of two energetic fields trying to make sense of each other? The more you explore this, the less certain things feel. Not because they're false, but because they're no longer bound to linear logic. You begin to understand that the gaze isn't just a physical gesture, it's a form of contact. Between souls, between timelines, between the seen and the unseen. And just when you think science might have the final answer, you feel it again. That electric chill down your spine. A presence behind you watching. And this time, you know, it's not your mind playing tricks. It's something else. Something ancient. Sometimes, being stared at feels like a weight. Like something is pressing into your field without permission. It's not always admiration. It can be projection, judgment, even energetic intrusion. But here's the truth most people never hear. You can shift that energy in real time. Not with force, not with fear, but with conscious presence. In advanced spiritual practices, especially in Kundalini and Tibetan teachings, there are techniques to contract or expand your aura on command. Your energy isn't static. It's alive, responsive, trainable. You can learn to pull it in like a thread or radiate it like a flame. And when you do, the responses around you change. Suddenly, those heavy stares soften or stop altogether. One Reddit user in a Kundalini thread shared how they use breath and posture to dissolve unwanted attention. By focusing their awareness on the solar plexus and grounding the energy into their feet, they reclaim their field without a single word. It's not magic. It's somatic control. And it works. Your nervous system speaks louder than your voice ever could. The key is neutrality. When you respond to unwanted energy with fear or ego, you feed it. But when you remain centered, you become untouchable. Practices like conscious breathing, micromovement, and visualization, especially using gold or white light fields, help restore sovereignty. You stop reacting. You start directing the flow. And here's what's even more surprising. Sometimes the stairs weren't even meant for you, but for the space you opened in others. People respond to resonance, to memory, to recognition. You're not just being seen, you're being felt, and that sensation shakes loose parts of them they didn't know were trapped. But one day, as you contract your energy and feel the room shift, someone continues to look, unmoved, unshaken. Their energy doesn't demand or drain, it just holds. And in that stillness, you sense something different. They're not here to take. They're here because they remember you, from somewhere far beyond this life. You've spent so much time wondering why people look at you. But have you ever asked, how do you look at them? Because your gaze, too, carries a frequency. One that can either pierce or heal. One that can shake someone's illusion, or make them feel safe enough to return to themselves. In ancient traditions, from the Sufi path to Zen Buddhism, the eyes are seen as conduits of energy, not just perception. A silent gaze can transmit compassion, clarity, or even awakening. Ramana Maharshi, the Indian sage, often said nothing during his teachings. He simply looked. And people wept, trembled, transformed. Not from words, but from presence. Your gaze has that same power. Most people are starving for true attention. Not attention that objectifies, judges, or grasps, but one that sees without needing to possess. When you look at someone from a space of inner stillness, your energy gives them permission to exist, without performing, without apologizing. And in a world addicted to reaction, that kind of gaze feels like salvation. But here's the truth no one tells you. Your gaze is only as powerful as your inner state. If you're fragmented inside, your eyes transmit confusion. If you're at peace, they become a mirror that others can't look away from. You don't have to say the right words. You don't even need to be noticed. The transformation begins the moment you choose to see with intention. And perhaps the most mysterious part of all is this. Some people don't know they're searching until they meet your eyes. It's in that single, electric exchange, that breathless second where time thins, that something forgotten comes alive in them. They may smile, or freeze, or cry, but inside, something real has shifted. Then, one evening, as you quietly walk past a stranger, your eyes meet for only a second. No words, no smile, but in that moment you see it. A flicker of recognition, like a soul remembering a truth it never knew it had forgotten. And just like that, you become the sign they were waiting for. You felt it, people looking at you with a strange hesitation, as if they're seeing something but can't quite process it. Their gaze lingers, then flickers away like they just remembered something they shouldn't. What if the reason is not you, but the distortion in the energetic field around you? In esoteric teachings, there's a concept known as auric distortion. When your frequency changes rapidly due to spiritual acceleration, the subtle body creates fluctuations that others unconsciously perceive. It's like walking through water with ripples still forming behind you. People sense the dissonance between your physical form and your new energetic blueprint, and their nervous system reacts with curiosity or confusion. This effect has also been described in mystic texts as the veil cracking. When someone begins to transcend their ego identity, the layers of illusion thin, and people feel it, even if they don't understand it. In certain Taoist schools, this is known as the phase where form lags behind spirit. The soul evolves faster than the body's adaptation, and others feel the difference. But here's the hidden cost. When your aura distorts in public, you become more visible, but less relatable. The stares you receive are not always about beauty, power, or threat, but about the disorientation your presence causes in those who still live in the old vibrational frequency. And just as you begin to understand this unsettling attention, you realize that some of those stares aren't from strangers at all. They're from people who seem oddly familiar, like they've met the version of you that hasn't yet arrived. Before the adults turn, before any words are spoken, it's the children who notice, or the dog who pauses, the cat that won't break eye contact. Their gaze lands on you with absolute presence, not judgment, not curiosity, just knowing. Why? Children and animals live in what mystics call the unfiltered field. Their perception isn't shaped by ego or language, but by energy. Their brains operate more in theta waves, associated with intuition and subconscious receptivity. That's why when your vibration shifts, they feel it first. Before logic, before thought, there is sensation, and they trust it completely. In animal behavior science, it's well documented that animals can detect mood, intention, and even illness in humans. Dogs, for example, have been trained to sense seizures, cancers, and emotional changes. But what if their gaze isn't just reactive, but reverent? What if they see in you something ancient, something returning? Children, too, often stare at those undergoing transformation. They don't know why. They just look, not because they're confused, but because they see something you might have forgotten. They stare not with question, but with remembrance. And the most startling part? Sometimes when they look at you, they smile, like they already know the secret you're still trying to remember. People don't just react to your body. They respond to your symbols. And your subconscious mind is constantly broadcasting signals you're not aware of. Posture, micro movements, emotional residue, all of it translates into energetic code. When you walk into a space, you're not just entering physically. You're transmitting meaning. And others pick up the signal, even if they don't consciously understand it. This is where psychoanalyst Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious becomes powerful. There are archetypes embedded in our psychic blueprint, images and energies shared across humanity. When someone embodies one of those archetypes, the seeker, the healer, the destroyer, the unconscious mind of others recognizes it instantly. And the body reacts with awe, with fear, with fascination. You've seen this before. A person walks in, says nothing, and heads turn. Why? Because they're resonating with an ancient pattern, and the collective mind around them remembers that symbol. Their presence activates dormant narratives in others. And when that happens, the eyes follow. But what if you're the one carrying that archetype now without realizing it? What if your walk, your silence, your stillness has become a story others have been waiting to hear again? Only this time, it's not in words. It's in your very being. Have you ever noticed how some people start talking to you out of nowhere? They stare, then suddenly open up about their life, their pain, their past. It feels strange, like they were waiting for something to give them permission. That something might just be your energy. When you carry spiritual clarity or inner peace, your frequency does more than attract, it disarms. Others feel less need to pretend, less pressure to perform. Your authenticity becomes a mirror that invites theirs, and that mirror can be both healing and terrifying. This effect is especially strong when your field holds what others are trying to reclaim, whether it's groundedness, self-worth, or peace. They're not staring at you. They're staring at the part of themselves that wants to come home, and your presence is the door. But beware, this energetic permission also comes with a strange consequence. People may project onto you roles you didn't choose: the guide, the confessor, the healer. And if you're not aware, you may carry energies that aren't yours. So the question becomes, can you hold the gaze without absorbing the weight? And when you finally learn to stay centered amid it all, you'll feel the shift, not in their words, but in the space that opens silently around you, like a wound beginning to breathe. What if the reason people are looking at you isn't because of who you are now, but because of the echoes of who you once were, or still are in another layer of reality? In mystical philosophies like those of the Toltecs and in modern quantum theory alike, the concept of multiple selves coexisting across timelines is taken seriously. Your presence is not singular, it's layered. And when you step into a powerful vibration, sometimes the past versions of you surface unresolved, unhealed, remembered. Some people may look at you and not know why you feel familiar, but deep in their unconscious, they're remembering a moment, a connection, a story where your soul crossed theirs. It's not superstition, it's energetic residue, and you carry more of it than you realize. In this light, the eyes of others don't just reflect their present reaction. They reflect a convergence of timelines. People may be seeing the version of you they knew in a dream, a memory, or another lifetime. And their stare is their soul whispering, "There you are." And that's when the question arises, sharp and clear like a chime in the dark. If they remember you before you remember yourself, what else are you carrying that you haven't yet reclaimed?